Hello, everybody. This is the Redox 5. This is June 9th, 2023, just to date that. We excuse our fabulous Dr. Maureen Hayes, who is taking a night off to be with family and do some other activities tonight. My name is Dr. Lee Osler. I am in the state of Washington in the United States. And I have with me our regular co-host, Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, Texas.
Now, if you need to put on your sunglasses because of our shirts, please don't hesitate. That's okay. You're not seeing an illusion. Go ahead, Lee.
I'm sure there's a story there. But
Yes.
Jim is a former stockbroker and Ann is a nutritionist, and so we love to have them balance this program out. We have tonight two guests. We've seen them regularly, and we get a lot of rave reviews over them. Dr. Ray Dixon, who tonight is in Bangkok, Thailand, and he has a presentation about 2 hours from now live at the ASEA headquarters in Bangkok. So that's why he's got the golden tie on to represent the facility. We also have Dr. Aaron Kaufman, who comes to us from the great state of New Mexico. Dr. Ray is a naturopath and a chiropractor, an osteopath, and Dr. Aaron Kaufman is a physician practicing in New Mexico. And we welcome both of you. Tonight, we've got some interesting things to talk about. We were just rehearsing them just a couple minutes before we got on the air. And maybe we could start off first by giving a general introduction. Let's start with you, Dr. Aaron. If you could maybe give a quick introduction of who you are. There's going to be people watching this tonight and later who may not understand who the great Aaron Kaufman really is. So you could explain that and why you're sitting here with us. And then when you're done, would you please pass it to Dr. Ray Dixon, who's going to anchor this program from the other side of the planet.
Real quick, before we get started, whoever wants to do the disclaimer, whether it's Dr. Aaron or Dr. Ray or Dr. Lee, someone pipe up and go ahead and please give that to begin with.
Aaron, do that as you start, please.
So these products that we're going to be talking about, these Redox products, ASEA and Renew 28, and the clay mask, ching, and the advanced serum these Redox products are not intended to treat or cure or diagnose any diseases or illness. They simply empower our cells to do what they're capable of doing, which is to repair themselves and function efficiently like when we were children.
That's right.
How was that?
Great.
Awesome. Now tell us a little bit more about your journey. We've heard it before, but I always like to remind a lot of people may not have heard it and or may listen to the recording and may not have a clue who this handsome feller is. So could you please tell us your journey to where you are now? What?
You're talking about Dr. Dixon?
No, talking to you, Dr. Aaron.
All right. I went to osteopathic medical school in California back before the Civil War. And I've been in osteopathic family medicine, integrative family medicine for 38 years in Albuquerque. I've had 4 clinics that I started. I'm in my 4th one now. And
Aaron, real quick, can you explain what integrative, what osteopath, can you explain what that is and how that differs from an MD, please? Because a lot of people may not know.
So osteopathy and allopathic medicine are the 2 primary forms of medicine practice in this country by fully licensed physicians. In other words, who can practice surgery, prescribe drugs, as well as do any specialty. And so if you go to an osteopath, a DO of any specialty, they're pretty much going to be indistinguishable from the MD of the same specialty. In other words, if you go to infectious disease osteopath, it's going to be pretty much the same as an MD. If you go to a thoracic surgeon of either specialty, it's going to be the same. And DOs, osteopaths, and now the programs tend to be, combined, the residencies and so forth. So we have all the same specialties available. A slightly disproportionate number of us tend to go into some kind of primary care, which is family medicine, OBGYN, pediatrics, that kind of thing, where you take patients in primarily as opposed to specialization and subspecialization, although those are certainly areas that DOs practice in. There's a slightly greater proportion of people who go into primary care and a somewhat greater proportion who go into underserved areas, more rural areas, inner cities, and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
But again, in reality, there's some of it, and we are trained as osteopaths in our osteopathic medical school. In addition to everything else that the MDs get, we are also trained to use our hands to help the body heal. In reality, who knows? I don't know what the numbers are these days, maybe 20%, maybe 30%. It would be a lot of osteopaths do any manipulation at all. And of those, it's a small percentage that do the deep stuff that really makes a profound difference in the patient's lives. So that's kind of as short as I can get it. Does that?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Great.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
So continue.
So continue with your
Integrative
ASEA
medicine
journey.
I'm sorry?
Continue with your ASEA journey, how this
Well,
all
you
began
asked
for
about
you.
integrative medicine. Integrative medicine just means combining whatever works in my book. And I've done that all my 38 years before there was such a term. It was 1990, a book called Spontaneous Healing by Andrew Weil. He coined the term integrative medicine. In my case, it just means combining a lot of herbs and dietary recommendations and exercise and homeopathics and glandulars and enzymes. I do a lot of proliferative therapy and PRP to regenerate ligaments. I use my hands to help the body heal. I do more of the human identical hormones than anybody in New Mexico. So it's just whatever works. And I'm not attached. It could be mainstream or it could be, quote, alternative to mainstream, even if it's been around for 5,000 years. And if it works and it's got a low risk to benefit ratio, in other words, it benefits patients without harming them, that's what I'm going to do. So and some people call it functional medicine nowadays. They're developing all kinds of new terms, but that's what integrative medicine is.
That sounds like you're an extremely well-rounded, you kind of look at all angles to be able to help people get better.
Yeah. I have a lot of rough edges, but generally I'm pretty well-rounded.
Cool. So what about your ASEA story, your Redox story? I know we've heard it, but again, for those that have not.
Once upon a time in a land far, far away, I was introduced to ASEA about 12 years ago, and I was very network marketing averse. And so when Dr. Edmonds told me this was network, I asked, because people were constantly having the type of practice I do, people constantly bringing me the latest, greatest antioxidants and juices and zeolites and so forth. And I'd had bad experiences in the 80s and 90s with hype and misrepresentation. And so I was very network marketing averse. I had said, I'm never going to do this again. And I was serious. So when Dr. Edmonds presented this to me and I asked her if it was network marketing, I said no. And I was serious. I hadn't done anything with network marketing for 15 years. And she was smart, or we can look at it as divine orchestration. She kept giving me research articles, that independent, really well done research that ASEA had funded, that showed athletes going 12% further before they hit their ventilatory threshold. Mice going 29% further before they were exhausted after drinking this for just a week. All these huge metabolic changes that took place in energy production inside our bodies 15 minutes after drinking this. And they were all really well done studies, double-blind, placebo control. And these were, particularly the athletes were had crossovers and washouts and so forth. Anyway, really good research. And it just so happened, I'm right now in my home in Cedar Crest above Albuquerque, and I'm at 7,000 feet. And for 46 years, I've been a runner. And for 16 years at that time, I had been running the trails up through the Cibola National Forest behind my house. I'd run out the door at 7,000 feet and run up to 8,000 feet and across and back down. So, these studies were exactly what I was experiencing. There were 8 places running up the mountain where I got my arms up and I'm like, and I can't get any more air. I've hit the ventilatory threshold. And so I'm reading these studies, and I'll say it took me 2 years of research. I was such a skeptic. And I'd never heard of it because it was a relatively new science. Nobody knew what redox signaling was. And still today, a lot of people don't. But particularly then, the science began in 1998. And I went to medical school 40 years ago when we were studying energy production and biochemistry and the Krebs cycle inside the mitochondria. We thought, if anything, we didn't think about them, but we thought these negative and positive ions that spun off were waste products.
Nice.
So there was no attention on that. And here comes these studies that say, no, these molecules, these oxidants and reductants, these redox molecules are actually foundational to life. You don't take a breath. Your heart doesn't beat. You don't hear me speak. You don't grow hair, even though it's kind of thin. That is not turned on and turned off or signaled by these molecules. And so this was revelatory to me. So not having heard of this science, I went to PubMed.gov, the US government's website for all the peer-reviewed medical research. And I put in the search bar redox signaling. And at that time, this is probably 2012, I think there was 6,000 or less articles that had something to do with that. So again, not understanding it, I start reading abstracts in the different areas that I'm interested in pathology and so forth, disease processes, and start to understand what this is. And finally, for various reasons, I got some and started drinking it. And within a month, with no expectations whatsoever, I'm powering up the mountain harder and faster. And I wasn't even drinking it properly. I just drank probably 4 ounces on the days I would run. And so Dr. Edmonds told me I had to drink it every day, and I did. And within 3 months, and it was a month before I turned 60, I set new personal best times for these trails that I'd been running up at that point, up 16 years by 20%. And so that got my attention. Then all of a sudden, 4 months in, I start sleeping like I hadn't slept in 20 years. One thing after another. At 4 months, my shoulders stopped hurting. 7 months, my hips. And a year, my low back stops hurting. And the changes, I know we had talked before, the changes continued for probably 4 more years. I kept noticing new improvements. So for people, who are just starting to drink it, we know it's working based on the studies. It's working right now, and we can prove that to you, and we can show you studies. But as you start to notice improvements, those will continue. And I guess everybody here can probably corroborate. 3, 4 years, 4 or 5 years, I kept noticing new stuff. Occasionally I still do, but for the last 5 years or so, it's sort of plateaued out. That was a much longer answer than I intended to give you.
That's great.
No, that's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Because that's kind of what we were discussing earlier is, my biggest fear, and frankly, why we started the show was the continual education. Because, so the doctor that got you in, Aaron, she kept dropping you research. And even though it was network marketing, you kind of bucked. Maybe you probably didn't tell her that you were looking at the research, but how long did it take you to cross that bridge over, oh my gosh, just like with Lee, 2
Years.
What?
Years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Lee, you didn't take that long, did you?
No.
Well, the research came pretty quick for me. It was the network marketing aversion that was a big bugaboo for me.
But you saw quicker results. And then Dr. Ray, real quick, kind of maybe share kind of like what Aaron did. What is your specialty? And describe, if it's the same as Aaron, but describe your differences between what you do with your patients and what you do, if you don't mind. And then your journey into Redox as well. Okay, and you're kind of a guest host. So, you're kind of one of our faves as well. So, but again, some people have not heard your story.
Absolutely. We're probably not as different as it might at first appear. The first comment I will make, although I studied osteopathy outside of the US, osteopathy is more like in the field like chiropractic, where the teaching focuses around the benefits of manipulation and removing osteopathic lesions, osteopathically speaking, or, of course, removing subluxations, chiropractically speaking. They are not trained as MD-type physicians and have no license in drug therapy at all in allopathic medicine, which, of course, is exactly what Aaron did, and I believe Dr. Lee's son as well. So my osteopathic, it was a diploma, actually, when I did it. They didn't even have Bachelor of Science degree status. Back when I graduated in 1978, it was a diploma. And I graduated a year later as a naturopath. Then, for the purposes of registration in Australia, there was a licensing process going on for osteopaths and chiropractors. I went on and did chiropractic at RMIT University in Melbourne, Australia, and graduated in 1982. So my entire background is from the natural medicine side. Same in some respects as Aaron, Dr. Kaufman. I did homeopathy, I did herbal medicine, Western herbal medicine, I did nutritional medicine, and I practiced those for more than 40 years in Melbourne, Australia, until I came to live in Phuket, Thailand, which was 2017. There seems to be a magic figure around the number 2. I was told about a seer by a 5 times heavyweight karate champion of the world by the name of Lorene Bavart, who I did karate with as well. But I was also her physician in the sense of naturopathics. In fact, my clinic sponsored her to the World Championships. And I hold her fully responsible for a gold medal I got representing Australia in Japan, because it certainly wasn't my part to play, but I was on the team and she carried me through. So she told me about a personal journey with a seer Redox. I'd never heard of Redox, the same as Dr. Aaron. And I note he came in 12 years ago. I came in eventually after that 2 years, 4 years ago, or 4.5 now. So it's actually about 6 to 7 years ago I'm being told about Redox, having never heard of redox signaling. I was then currently also lecturing at the Australian College of Natural Medicine in Melbourne, and in the science department, mind you, I was lecturing in anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology, disease processes. And I can tell you there was no education taking place in redox signaling in biochemistry either. And I left at 2017. So as Dr. Kaufman has indicated, this is still a relatively new area of science. 1998, the first discovery of a redox signaling molecule is like yesterday in the realms of science, and the unraveling of the journey and what come from that in terms of healing processes. So I'm also very much involved in integrative medicine, but not in the sense that I combine with drug therapy. I'm aware of drug therapy. I'm obviously surrounded by drug therapy, but I don't personally prescribe drugs, and nor do I wish to. So I focus much more on that natural healing journey side. And of course, as has been indicated here, what works I will use as well. And on my journey, it's been a constant seeking out of what works. I mean, from a natural healing perspective, and in my opinion, there is only natural healing. There is nothing outside of, nature and the immune system and God-given, if you want to look at it that way, internal healing of an inner doctor. That is the only healing. And it's working with that from a multitude of therapeutic means. And the final one that I came to in my journey, and thank God I finally paid attention, was the SEER Redox, because as in most of our journey, it was just too good to be true. I mean, what I was seeing in terms of results and being told about and reading testimonials, it's like, you have to be kidding me. I mean, I was reading, as I often say, my failures. People I'd tried desperately to help over 40 years in all manner of problematic situations, including terminal, and failed. I knew I did my best, but I kind of was a little disappointed, you might say, at the end of that journey of life. And that began when I was 18, when my asthma was cured by a naturopath, by the way, who I worked with for the next 40 years. I was a little disappointed that I hadn't found something special. I'd found a lot of good things, but that's something special, a bit of a holy grail, if you like, I'd never found. Anyway, 2 years after Lorraine first mentioned this to me, she came for a holiday and actually stayed with me in Phuket. At that point in time, I'd left my clinic, so I had a lot more free time to do more research. When you're in practice, patient after patient, you're kind of overwhelmed a lot with the time restriction. So I had a lot more time, and I similarly started to look at some of the research. So I was flipping between the research and the studies that had been done that Dr. Aaron referred to, and then back to the testimonials. And it was a real seesaw. Now, a further clarification is I was not in any way unwell. I had no pain. To this day, I don't, but I didn't then either. I had no disease process known. So, but I'm very aware of aging and wear and tear and disease processes. I know the statistics, I taught them. And I didn't want to head to my father had prostate, bladder cancer from radiotherapy that came from the prostate treatment he had. He ended up with a touch of dementia. My brothers had prostate cancer. I didn't want to go there. So I was always using supplements, some of the herbs and homeopathy over the years. So when I finally figured, look, there's something to this, I need to get on it to really know, I did. And I will never stop. That was in July 2018, I started. And it has been an absolute pleasure and a great revelation for me. It's given me my raison d'etre back. It brought all of that amazing enthusiasm that I've had for years to share and help and heal. And that comes spontaneous to me. This is not a work process in any way. It's a sharing process. I just share the story. Now that I have my own stories, of course, I wasn't personally unwell. I take about 6 cups a day. We'll talk about that later. But I have miracle after miracle of people that I've worked with, which never cease to astound me. So it's a great pleasure to be involved with this great company of SEER Redox signaling molecules, and of course to mix with people like yourselves on a regular basis.
That's awesome.
Something you said, and maybe Aaron, if you don't mind responding to this, but you said it, Ray. I was personally not unwell. How does anybody know that? Aaron, I've worked with multiple people that a doctor lives down our street, and he had been on the product for a little bit, and he goes, yeah, the liquid, the gel's pretty cool. And he goes, I'm really healthy. And I just kind of paused and said, how do you know that? You can't open yourself up and say, oh, wow, I look good today. Close me back up. So Aaron, can you speak to the people out there that are, I think I'm healthy until they're not? Can you maybe speak to them? Because a lot of times you guys see the people that, man, I've given up.
They wait.
They wait
till
they've done
wrong.
the traditional route, then they're going to come see you, Dr. Aaron, and Dr. Ray as well. Can you talk to them that let's talk about being proactive, maybe a little and I hate to be rude, but some common sense that we're getting older, things are going to happen.
Well, it's a pretty broad subject. And the first thing I think of, Jim, is, I have a lot of patients, not many or not all, but a lot of patients who actually listen to what I tell them. And, they feel good. We have them on hormones. We have their vitamin D and their magnesium and their, B levels up and so forth, and they're eating properly and so forth. And they, are thanking me the drinking ASEA and so forth. And they feel good. And I know by looking at all these parameters that they are much, much healthier than they were. Now, to get to what you asked, it's, just on a real basic level, up until about puberty, we are flush with these redox signaling molecules that are in every cell. So our cells work very efficiently. And I'm fond of telling people, the way to think about it is that if you look at a little 5 or a 10-year-old and they cut or burn themselves or sprain their ankle, 2 or 3 days, they're fine. By the time somebody's 30, even if they're healthy, it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks before they heal those wounds. And I'm about to turn 70 and I'm in great shape. I'm an athlete and so forth. And I drink this stuff and I use hormones and I eat really well. But if I cut or burn myself or sprain my ankle, it's going to take 2 or 3 months to heal. And a lot of that is just a deficiency of these molecules. So aging is clearly a deficiency of redox cell signaling molecules. And this is the only company in the world that's figured out how to create them and stabilize them so we can replenish them topically and orally. So, obviously, that's what we're here to talk about. This is a way to somewhat, in greater degree, guarantee that you're healthier than you were. But in reality, even cutting yourself open and looking inside, you're not going to know. We live, Jim, in a toxic world. We live in an amazingly toxic world. There's all these ideas about, what we experience in an hour a day, toxic air-wise and food and so forth is 1,000 times what our grandparents, those kind of numbers. There's no question that our air, our food, particularly, and Western food, American food, is just poison. They're doing all kinds of things to our health, particularly ever since COVID, that are just, medical care is not the same as it was 3 years ago. There's just so much going on that is toxic to our bodies. So how healthy are we? I see people all day, every day, you guys do too, who are just, they've been waylaid. We're seeing more chronic illness and more degenerative illness, autoimmunity, cancer, diabetes, and so forth than ever because of these things. And so, hallelujah if somebody feels good and feels like they're healthy, but it's a pretty complex picture, which is why I have a living. And why people come to me, because I look at this grander picture and help them get their health back versus here's the pill for, that's going to take your pain away without fixing your problem or whatever. So pretty broad question. And how do you know you're healthy? You're drinking the molecules, you're eating, not eating sugar and starch, you're not eating, you're eating a whole food diet, no processed food, and Ann can comment on this, all day long, I'm sure. But you're doing everything right. You're getting off your butt. You're not sitting in a chair all day or watching, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Ann?
Well, Ray's got his hand up, but just really quick on, being proactive, which I've always taught. And it's like you're preparing your body ahead of time before you get to 60 or before you get to 50 or whatever age you might be. I mean, we have collagen coming out on Tuesday and we start losing that more rampantly after age 30. So here we now are able to allow our body to make more of it. And then here we're going to see some other pretty amazing results. But you were commenting about, okay, people assume they're healthy, but then they have an accident or a cat scratch. I remember Dr. Ward used to say it takes thousands and thousands of redox molecules just to heal one cat scratch. So you can imagine if you have something threatening that's much more serious than a cat scratch, you need more product. So God forbid you get in an accident, fall down, whatever, car, whatever, you should be taking more. If you've got something challenging and you can read your body and you know, ooh, this doesn't feel right. Those are the kind of days, when we hike, which is why we had these shirts, we went to a place in Texas where you can hike. We take more on hike days. We take more on ski days. We're able to do things that we didn't do before. Jim didn't do before. He had 10 back surgeries. So we know to take more. We suggest that to people because of age and what you have going on. If you only are on 4 ounces and you're not feeling it, you better up it to 6. Start seeing those changes. And if you don't see it on 6, change to 8 and so on.
So, Aaron, you kind of had a couple boo-boos.
We see people who, have injuries, and it heals literally 5 to 10 times as fast when they're using these products. If you guys, we talk about this every time.
I know.
The 1 minute video of my face at 63 in 2 weeks like that.
That's right.
But
That's
literally
amazing.
causes us to heal 5 to 10 times as fast.
And that's a radical thing because someone else at 63 that gets the same injury, like you mentioned earlier, it could be months on months. Think about your turn cycle of your skin. If you're 50, 60, 70, 80, you won't see cell turnover unless you start getting on Renew 28.
Okay, so this is kind of where I step in as a non-medical, non-whatever, ex-jock and stockbroker, non-science. Look, this stuff sounds nuts. It really does. And if I look at the bottle here, real small print, it says it's dietary supplement. I'm not sure what it says over there, Dr. Ray, but I bet you it says it's made from salt water. And I met someone today that said, guys, look, I looked at the bottle. It says it's just salt water. Lee, can you maybe respond to that? Because I think that's right up your alley.
Actually, I'm going to defer to Ray. He had his hand up, and Ray.
Oh, that's true. He could add to it, and he did have his hand up after me.
Well, first thing about wellness, Jim, is you have it until you lose it. But there are certain basic parameters. If you've got plenty of energy, you sleep well, you feel well, your blood pressure is normal, blood sugar is normal. These are all parameters of assessment of how you are. But the number one is how you feel. Now, when people start going down the gurgler, they don't feel so good. Now, there's not necessarily a measure for that, but they know they don't feel so good. And then the brain fog comes. And then the chronic fatigue can set in. And then eventually the disease processes are able to be diagnosed. It is a slippery downhill slope that takes years. And every one of us is on that slope, by the way, everyone. And the only people that in any way I know that can reverse it to some extent are the people on the healthier diets, breathing cleaner air, having their exercise, as Dr. Aaron said. And of course, the rest and the people who I would deem to be at the peak resistance to the aging and wear and tear process heading into disease are the groups of people in the world who have found and are using ASEA Redox. There is nothing better. I say constantly it's the greatest health discovery, in my honest opinion, that has ever occurred as a singular entity that we can take as a supplement. Now, the other thing to bear in mind that hasn't been emphasised just yet, it's got out there, but needs to be made a little clearer. Dr. Aaron said we peak produce at puberty. So this is a known fact now. We peak produce mitochondrial density and efficiency peaks at puberty, and we're losing 1% of these trillions of molecules made every second of every minute of every hour of every day, 1% less per year on average. Now, if you are on the junk food diet and you have blood sugar problems and blood pressure problems or any other chronic health problem, you'll be accelerating beyond that 1% per year.
That's right.
If you are doing the healthier lifestyle activities that we've mentioned, you will accelerate less than 1% per year. But remember, I said accelerate. You're still going down the gurgler. It's called aging and wear and tear. And we're all heading into disease processes. Now, in terms of what this is, the redox signaling molecules are made inside the mitochondria in the Krebs cycle, as Dr. Aaron said, and they're made from salt water. So they are naturally made, natively made from sodium, chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen, some with nitrogen, which we can get from the proteins we consume, and some we get from air, but of course most is from the protein we consume. That will come into the configuration of redox molecules. So, you know, we are all deficient. And I agree with Dr. Kaufman's choice of words there. We've taken that word from nutrition, because this is not a nutritional product. Remember, they're made inside the body natively, but we have no term for a deficiency of something we make internally. So therefore, we use that term deficiency to make it clear to people that you are lacking in these molecules. And the only supplement that's ever been made of these molecules is the sea redox. Now, there's a lot of supplements that work in the space of redox, meaning they affect the health of cells and what the redox molecules can do in your body. They are affecting it. If you like, they're channeling it. Supplements can channel it. But of course, you can also have blatant deficiencies in nutrients. So obviously, a redox molecule cannot substitute for a vitamin C deficiency. You need the vitamin C. But certainly they interact together and work much more profoundly together if you have enough redox molecules and your vitamin C. So all nutrition works better if you are also supplementing with redox molecules. The only other way to naturally make more redox molecules is exercise, because effectively you create more mitochondria in your skeletal muscles and cardiac myocytes, your heart muscle. They get bigger and bulkier when you work muscles, because they have to lay down more muscle fibers to do the contractile work, but they also need ATP to run that. And in the process of more Krebs cycles and more ATP being made, you're making more redox molecules. But no, you do not cancel out the decline. You would just slow down the deterioration into deficiency levels. So the only way you can correct that day-to-day, minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour deficiency in these molecules is to take a sea redox. Now, the final thing to say there is we don't know how deficient you are. There is no actual test that I can do with you and say, you are 6 cups a day deficient. And even if we could, it will change by the day, as was said by Anne and Jim before, in terms of use more when your body's challenged. Now, why use more? Well, because you probably need more. And there is absolutely no negative effect. There is no toxicity. Now, when the company discovered these, they were running electricity through salt water, very finely, tightly controlled, purest water you can get, pharmaceutical grade salt, run the electricity through it to break up these molecules. So by all means, it's made from salt water. The elaboration of the constituents of redox signaling molecules is going to take some time to unravel and be on the label, because science is still catching up with this. It's a process of what can be on the label. You know, the constituents of bread is not bread. The final product being the redox signaling molecules that are in this product after the electrolysis, the electrochemical process is done. And of course, in the end, it's going to be results that will capture you. No, facts can tell, but, you know, the stories will sell. The results will sell. I believe Dr. Lee might have been more quickly engaged after seeing a remarkable result with his wife.
Right.
You know, if you get results, I mean, I've lost count of the number of doctors who have come into this from results. They didn't come in from the science. They didn't know the science. They were confounded by it until they studied it, of course. Most came in from results that they either had themselves or in their family or in their patients in many cases. You know, I did more because I happened to know Lorraine. I spoke to friends of hers who had had very serious terminal challenges that had resolved. So I came in from that perspective and then did the research and then got on board. But I will never stop taking a sea of Redox. I said earlier I take 6 cups a day. 1 cup is 2 ounces, by the way, or 60 mil. Why? Because I guesstimate that's about where I should be taking at 68 years of age this year. But let me tell you, I'll be up to a bottle a day whenever I'm challenged. When I was caught in the United States of America and couldn't come back to my home country of Thailand or visit my mum in Australia, I had to be vaccinated. It was not a personal choice of mine, but I can tell you I took a bottle a day. So, you know, whenever I am remotely challenged by anything, I will up the ante to 8 cups or more.
Can we?
Very good.
Yeah. Did you want to ask?
Oh, just, you were talking about different things. I call it sabotaging your redox potential. I mean, I'm not going to get on a soapbox, but when I see people consume something or eat something, then that is going to make it harder for the body. Now the body's got to repair more stuff. And Dr. Ward used to say, if you sleep enough, get good clean water and as clean a diet as you can, then you're going to see even more results, because now the molecules make everything else that's good for you work better.
Okay. Now, we talked about, yeah, go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
I want to just segue what she just said.
Yeah, please.
You know, people might still be wondering what's redox signaling and is this like some magic potion or whatever? But what Ann just said, I think, is key. And I'd like to phrase it this way. This is the way the body was designed to work. You know, we miss that. We tend to have a drug mindset, a pharmaceutical mindset about what we're talking about, thinking that it is doing something to us. And that's not what really redox signaling is about. What redox signaling is about is working in concert with the rules that make up biochemical cell function. And what I mean by that is if we step back and said, well, why does all this lifestyle stuff that Dr. Aaron and Dr. Ray talked about, you know, exercise and fasting and eating good food and colorful vegetables and, you know, mindfulness and stress reduction and good sleep and so on and so forth. Why do any of those or all of those taken together, why do they make anybody healthier? Because we just accept that they do, but I'll bet you couldn't find 1 in a million people who could describe the pathways that they all work on that cause health to occur. So, you know, if we're going to challenge the paradigm, we would need to unpack that a little bit and say, well, why does a healthy diet make you healthy, right? And we just define it that way. And the reason is because they operate by these very same pathway rules. We call these pathway genes that activate the response in the cell to stressful problems that Dr. Aaron was talking about earlier that make us more resilient. I think a good way to understand this, at least for the non-scientific person, is if you look around in your room and you look and see a thermostat on the wall. That thermostat is a programmed relay that senses the ambient condition in your living environment. It's either too hot or too cold or whatever in your room, or it's just right. We call that a balance. You know, you're in homeostasis, right? But when it gets too hot or cold, there's a relay that switches on that tells a machine in some other part of your house that it needs to go into action so that it can change or buffer or moderate the condition in that room so that it's comfortable or balanced again. And when it reaches that, it turns it off. It doesn't just stay on. And I think that's a great metaphor or analogy for how the cell works. There are processes that are programmed in the cell that when we get out of balance, when we have too much oxidation, for example, when the cell starts to get sick and not function properly, there is something that senses or detects that status and tells the DNA how to respond properly to it. And it sets in motion the corrective, defensive protocols and procedures inside the cell until it rebalances the cell and then it turns. So my point is it's responsive. And a drug mindset is not responsive. It just acts. It's just going there. It's looking for receptor sites, and it will, when it finds it, it does its thing. And a signaling molecule is a responsive element that will turn on and turn off these important redox switches that make us resilient to stress. And that's what makes us healthy. That's by a definition, the definition of anti-aging is I'm opposing those, we call it deleterious, effects of my environment. So I just wanted to kind of pull that together because this isn't anything magic. I have a phrase that I put in my book that's called "Awaken Your Inner Doctor."
Doctor.
These processes are already there, and when we eat right and exercise right, and we use these molecules to activate those processes, we're just turning on what we already have. That's why I love this conversation with Ray and Aaron about natural healing.
Yeah.
That is, you got to drill into that. Ray, go ahead.
Just continuing with that, in some respects, that I think is really important. There is a hierarchy of this healing process as well. There is a priorities inbuilt into this natural healing signaling process in terms of what will be addressed and how long that might happen to take in your personal healing journey. Reversing this damage can take time, and it's a really important conversation. I remember in my naturopathic studies, it was this inner doctor was emphasized in terms of the healing journey. It's spoken about a lot in all natural healing, whether it's homeopathic, vitalistic theory, or natural medicine, herbal, nutritional healing philosophy. And that is your skin, hair, and nails are going to get last priority for obvious reasons. They're not essential to survival. Yeah. Your vital organs, brain, central nervous system, vital organs will get first priority. The less vital, next priority, skin, hair, and nails as an idea, last priority. So you personally can't decide where these molecules go to work. You can channel them when you're using a supplement of them, like you can target a sore knee with Reno 28 gel. You can target, but you can't instruct the inner doctor in terms of your ingestion of the supplement, the liquid supplement, as to where they will go to work. But you can rest assured they're working, and they're going to go where you actually need them most. And this comes back to a point you made earlier, Jim. You don't know. When sickness begins, you have no idea. You have no idea when first rogue cells are breaking away and beginning to form a rogue cell tumour. You don't know. There are no signs or symptoms at all. So they will go to work when you're ingesting them where you happen to need them the most. And hopefully you'll never know what was coming, because that's what it's a very important point when you're using these products, is you will never know what you would have experienced in that next year, 2 or 5, when you're taking it. I've been pondering this a lot in the last week or two. And some of those consequences that you would have experienced would have been serious, and in some cases terminal. So when you start this journey, we teach, please give it 3 to 4 months, because 90% of people experience an obvious benefit. That doesn't mean everything's healed. An obvious benefit in that 3 to 4 months. But by no means does that mean healing stops at 4 months and you maintain the status quo. We heard from Aaron earlier that he noticed things disappearing, his low back pain at 1 year. We had Dr. Walker on here a few weeks ago, whose blood pressure normalized 3 years in to using a SEER Redox. So the health and healing journey will continue until you do reach your optimum for your age. How will you know? You'll feel it.
Oh, yeah.
You'll have the energy, you'll get the sleep, you'll have no brain fog. You'll be 68 like me, feeling like 28. Roughly. So this is how you'll know. So please give it time and do persevere. They cannot not work. This is how the body works.
Okay. So I love this line of conversation. I have seen, like when I started taking the molecules again, I was taking 500 discomfort pills, one of them for 25 years. Aaron, why is it that my brain was a lot clearer the next day when I started 8 ounces, but yet other people that have a similar situation, they don't feel that for Lord knows when? Can you maybe kind of dig a little? We only have like 10 minutes, and then I have one other question I would like to follow up with you, if you don't mind. But, and also younger people are seemingly having more health issues today. Do you see younger patients?
So address the first one.
Yeah. So,
I think Dr. Dixon and Dr. Osler just addressed that. We don't know where these molecules are going to work. We don't know what this individual body needs. Where are its greatest deficiency? And there's this wisdom, what Dr. Osler calls the inner doctor, that deals with what needs to be dealt with most, urgently or most appropriately. And so, you and I can both have the same back problem and, be the same age and, be roughly the same, but we got a totally different internal constitution. But what we do know is that all of us sharing ASEA with people, and with what I do, and it sounds like what Dr. Dixon does, we do a really, really good job of delaying the inevitable. So, we're all going to age and die, but this is the as Dr. Osler said, this is the greatest anti-aging product that has ever been. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know it's going to be appropriate and it's going to help. Like Dr. Dixon says, we know this works. We know this is going to youthen your cells, turn on cellular efficiency.
So even a child, as Jim asked you on that second part,
Right.
For a child, a younger person, why do they need it? Because
That goes back to our earlier comment. I was just doing this, I've got a big Australian group that I'm working with, and we were just talking about this condition mostly kids get that can progress into aging, where they can't look people in the eyes and they're emotionally stunted, have blow-ups. And this just makes this huge difference. Why are there more and more and more people like that every day, particularly in Australia, particularly in the United States? Why are those numbers going through the roof? You ask me, it's what I talked about earlier. It is a ridiculously toxic world. The food additives and the dyes and the sugar and all the excitogens and things they put in processed food are destroying kids' health. We're seeing, much more of the diseases of affluence, which is diabetes and autoimmunity and coronary artery disease and heart disease, cancers and so forth, than we've ever seen. I watched in my 38-year career, things that were not common, just increasing and increasing because of initially the adding of sugar to everything, big gulps and candy bars in the outside of the grocery store. And it kept doing this. And about 15 years ago, well, by now, maybe even a little longer, GMOs came along and we started seeing it do this. And then when they started spraying Roundup on all of the corn and the soy and the wheat, that's in everything. It went like this. It went perpendicular. And these numbers are just absurd, and this, I've witnessed this. You think about, most of us are old enough. When I was a kid in elementary school, by any kind of standards, there was one fat kid in the whole school out of 300-400 people. Today, it's over 30%. That is food. So kids are more toxic. We're seeing things younger and younger. We're seeing more diseases and so forth. It's pretty pathological. And it brings up a point that, what I believe Dr. Osler was talking about earlier, it's not just a matter of, okay, this fixes everything like a drug. You can do whatever you want and have no lifestyle and so forth. I tell people it's like having a knife in your back, and I can go, wow, I've got this really great dressing. You won't even see the blood and so forth. At some point, you have to stop eating the crap food. You got to get out of the chair. You got to pull the knife out to begin the healing process. But that's the answer to your question from my standpoint.
Now, I had a quick question. I was thinking about Aaron and your journey. Oh, I didn't
Go ahead,
see your
Ray.
hand there.
Oh, well, another just topping that off a little bit is, you know, the medical allopathic model, if I could call it that, of the Genome Project. You know, weren't they going to solve everything with the DNA and the genes? And now they think they're going to solve everything by manipulating what's in the genes. Man, oh man, don't they ever wake up? You know, it isn't going to work, and it didn't work. You know, they'll develop therapies from the unraveling of the genome. But what have we found out since 1998? The redoxime regulates the genome. And they didn't even know about the redoxime before 1998. So, you know, this is not going to change. The wise people land where we are. They figure out, I better be careful what I'm eating. You are what you eat. Let thy food be thy medicine. Hippocrates said, after all. Well, that was a long time ago. You know, so until we wake up to the fact that we need to keep our air as clean as possible and lessen our exposure to these contaminants and toxins everywhere, as Dr. Aaron so ably pointed out, and then increase nutritional status, nutritional density, and get on a redox supplement, you ain't going to get your health back. And you're going to pass on, you know, your way of life, and your lifestyle is going to pass on through your generations to come, and all the package that goes with it and the disease processes that go with it. We're at a really pinnacle time in evolution, in my opinion, where you've got a growing, fortunately, enlightened group waking up to this, and they're going to improve. You can reverse damage to DNA and genes. You know, someone had to get the bad gene somewhere. It had to begin. Well, you can reverse it too. If you're on the right lifestyle and redox. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of people that don't know about this stuff that are just going to keep on, and they're going to go down and down the tubes.
I agree. A quick thing. I love that ASEA is now promoting, the corporation is now promoting that the cell performance products lengthen your telomeres. You know, we were for years thinking, that, you know, probably the redox molecules did it, but there was no studies or anything. And I love it that they're promoting that, because there's obviously another product on the market that claims they lengthen telomeres. So, you know, that cellular degeneration, aging process, so forth. Now we can say, yeah, we lengthen telomeres.
Yeah, super exciting to have the cell performance. What I was going to say real quick, only because we're about to end, is in your journey, Aaron, since you're our special guest, when the gel came out 8 years ago and you were able to add that to the artillery, how did you present it that here we can use the gel form, get the redox molecules through the skin, use it for reflexology, use it on your lymph nodes, use it wherever on your body you want to. I mean, you had that change with your injury. You had to have used a lot of Renew 28. Maybe you can just tip for a minute, since we've talked mostly about liquid, that they can use the gel right now. They can sit down with somebody and show them cell signaling in a matter of minutes. Even the back of their hand, gel can go on and blood flow is going to improve. Just tip it as we close.
1 minute.
25 words or less. You know, it's interesting.
We can go a little over.
Up through the nutritionals, finally with the cell performance products, I backed off. But every time they came out with something new, I went, oh, great. You know, oh, we've got something that helps wrinkles. I'm an old wrinkly guy, big deal, you know, that sort of thing. And then we started going, holy mackerel, you know, my discomfort's going away, my excruciating discomfort, my wounds are healing and so forth. And, you know, Silverman came out with 3 and 5. And then, you know, I love Chuck Tyndall's Tyndall swipe, 3 swipes. And right now you notice the changes. So it's, I call it a parlor trick, but it's something that gets people's attention. When you use one of those little sample tubes and you have them do this and their big toe stops hurting or their headache's gone in a minute or 5 minutes, they go, I need this right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, Lee, anything you want to close up with? We're at the top of the hour.
My close is to say thank you to Dr. Ray and Dr. Aaron for
Yeah,
being
appreciate
a part
y'all.
for being a part of the ASEA Redox 5 broadcast tonight. This has been a special. We do this, as Jim said earlier, to try and pay it forward. We do this to help provide some validation. I like Aaron's use of, sometimes people think of this as a parlor trick, but the reason why it works is that it's obeying rules of the cell. And that's you can't really say it much more simply than that. We found something, we have something that obeys those rules, and therefore we can get these results. So please share this with people, invite other people to learn about this. If somebody invited you to watch this video, I would encourage you to get back with them to follow up and satisfy your curiosity and give it a try. I think if there's one theme that maybe came out of tonight's discussion is this is not a one and done thing. You don't just do this and I'll check in next Monday to see if I'm better. And if I am, I'll continue. If that's where you're at, you're not doing yourself any favors. And if you're worried about the cost or anything like that, I have two things to say to you, and that is consider the cost of disease and dysfunction as an alternative. And number two, help us share this with people, and you'll be able to participate with us. This is for each of us a side business. This is a side hustle, and we need that. We didn't talk much about that, but we need that today as much as we almost need anything else. We're all being threatened at every turn. So there's multiple reasons for you to do your due diligence on this.
Real important sort of tangent expansion on that, Lee, is it just hit me as you're saying that. Yeah, it's a side hustle, and yeah, you can get your product paid for, defray the cost of your product, and then some, and then some. But the thing that we don't talk about enough, and I try to tell people, I say my prayer for you is that you have the experience I have, that you share this with people and experience the intense excitement, joy, love of people coming to you and say, because of your sharing, because you opened your mouth, my life I still have my life. I'm healthier. I don't hurt as much. My life is better. I guess you could call that an intangible, but it goes along with the business.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I think
those goosebumps.
To me, that's everything. That's why I'm here. And that's the ASEA's mission statement, to be a force for good in the world and transform people's lives.
That's right.
Dr. Ray,
That's great.
anything to say? Wrap it up.
Well, it's a little hard to follow these guys, but look, let me just say, it is what they say it is. It is the most remarkable discovery ever, in my opinion, to this point in evolution that I'm aware of. It's a great joy to be able indeed to share it and just be thrilled by people's results. It as much as you give, it just seems to keep coming back. And it's just a great joy. And it's not work for me. And side hustle, I think it's my main hustle, Dr. Lee. It's become, I'm helping more people. I mean, Dr. David Silverman says this, I'm able to help more, and Maureen, I'm able to help more people sharing this, and the ripple effect across the world of the 33 countries in which we are, and will be in many more soon to come. I leave this call and I'll be in 1 hour on the stage at headquarters Bangkok doing a 1 hour,
Awesome.
1.5 hour presentation and answering Q&A on this very topic. This is fun.
Great.
It's a total joy for me. And I can't think of anything that would be more rewarding along the lines of what Dr. Aaron and Dr. Lee have said, and Jim and Ann. So thank you very much. Thank you, ASEA.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. And thank you, the Lord, for helping us discover the redox molecules.
That's right. Thanks again. This is awesome.
Guy, this is a great show. so many people are suffering. And as I say, they're suffering in silence, like I was. I was in deep, not a very good place with the discomfort that I was in. I was taking 500 pills. And when my best friend came over to my home, when he called me up and said, I'm coming over, I said, okay. You know, I listened, and praise God that I did, because my life, our lives have been radically changed. And we were in a very bad place financially, and we had our back to the wall. As we say, that we burned the ships behind us and we went forward without looking back. And we have made this a significant part of it is our future. But guys, we're giving people hope. And you just have to keep asking yourself one question. Like Terry Latham kept proposing to us, what if this is real? What do you have to lose? You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so, guys, we just are so thankful. This is our way of paying it forward. My biggest fear is people start this off of some maybe internet program and they don't understand the depth of what we just went through, and they get on it for maybe 10 minutes and they go, well, it didn't work for me, I quit. And then they go out and poo-poo it. I just wanted to say two things. Please, if you're going to do research, do proper research. Get back to the person that got you on the call, and do not go to Google. Google is the bathroom wall of the internet. Go to Google Scholar and then PubMed, or go to ASEAScience.com. And one of the favorite sites that we have is realredoxresults.com. There are over 120 testimonials, and each testimonial itself makes up 5. They have 3 to 5 different testimonials in one, but it's one discovery. It's one breakthrough that has 120 plus people sharing their lives are changed. This is real. And so we are giving people hope, not just for your health. For us, it was the health and the financial blessing. So please, do not go to Google and do not go to Amazon. ASEA, the company, will never sell anything through Amazon or Walmart or any of those places. That is typically stolen. It's out-of-date product. Do not do that. We will never sell. Corporate has made that abundantly clear. We will always work through Dr. Osler, Dr. Aaron, and Dr. Ray, and us, and others, the thousands upon thousands that are out there like us. So please do proper research. Get back to the one that got you on the call tonight and get started. Stop procrastinating. Your health wants you to get better. You can do this. So guys, thank you. We have, by the way, we have a new guest, a new doctor that's going to be with us next week, Dr. Frank Melangrano.
Right.
And we had his sister on the show, and that's where we had Rocky, not Balboa, but we had Rocky, the grandson of Secretariat. So Dr. Frank, and I hear I just saw Aaron smile. I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about Dr. Frank.
It's great.
And so we're really excited to have him on the show. We've got a great lineup for the next 2 months, guys. Come back, bring people with you. So guys, thank you. God bless. This will be up on Redox Matters, Lee, in about an hour?
Yep.
Redoxmatters.com in about probably 90 minutes.
And it's under the video tab. And there's a ton of all the videos are there. So guys, thank you. God bless. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks.
Dr. Aaron, thank you.
Appreciate
Dr. Ray, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Lee, as always, we love you.
Ray, have a good meeting.
Guys.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Aaron.
you.
God bless.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
We appreciate you, Lee.